It was a rainy Tuesday morning when I felt the first crack forming in the foundation of my life. I had just dropped my son Daniel off at kindergarten and was pulling into the driveway of our suburban home, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. The notification banner slid across my screen like a whisper from the shadows. From unknown number. Subject, you should know what he's doing. I tapped on it without hesitation. My breath caught as I read the short message. Your husband has been staying with her for 3 weeks now. Check the hotel receipts on his email. You deserve better. My first reaction wasn't shock, it was a strange kind of stillness, like my body instinctively knew something my mind hadn't yet caught up with. I laughed a little under my breath. A prank. Some weird scam. But then I remembered the distant look in Marcus's eyes every time I asked him how work was. How he had started showering twice a day. The sudden interest in evening workouts. His phone, which used to sit face up on the counter, was now clutched tightly in his pocket like a secret. The silence in the house mocked me as I walked inside. I set my coffee down, opened my laptop, and logged into his email. He never changed his passwords. He probably never imagined I'd have a reason to. The inbox was clean. Too clean. But the trash folder wasn't. One by one, I opened deleted confirmation emails. Hotel bookings. Dinner reservations. Uber receipts to and from addresses I didn't recognize. All of them logged after he claimed he was staying late at the office. One email caught my eye, dated 2 nights ago. Subject, hope last night wasn't too much for you. Winking face, can't wait to see you again, babe. The sender's name? Clara M. I knew that name. She worked in his office. I'd met her at a company barbecue once. She had complimented my dress and asked if Daniel was our only child. I couldn't breathe. My fingers trembled as I closed the laptop. I could feel the thrum of blood in my ears. It was like the entire room had shrunk around me. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was layered. It was the lie of normalcy, the routine of it all. Waking up, making him coffee, watching him kiss Daniel on the forehead before heading out to cheat on us both. He came home that night like he always did. Smiling. Carrying a takeout bag like he was some kind of hero. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I watched. I studied him. I counted the way his eyes darted when he talked, how he avoided mine. I needed more. I needed a plan. Because I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to ruin him. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed beside Marcus, listening to his even breathing, his occasional snore. Every sound out of his mouth felt like a mockery, like a lullaby for a life he had already abandoned. My eyes burned not from tears but from the sheer force of keeping them in. When the sun rose, I was already in the kitchen, packing Daniel's lunch. Marcus strolled in, yawning, scratching his head, and kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened. He didn't notice the stiffness in my body or the way I didn't look at him. He said, "Meeting ran late last night," as he grabbed a granola bar. I replied, "Hope it was worth it," and smiled just enough to make him think I believed him. He left whistling. After Daniel's drop-off, I made the first of many calls. I hired a private investigator. A woman named Dana, sharp and quiet, with a voice that sounded like she'd seen too many broken hearts to be surprised anymore. I told her I needed proof, photos, texts, times. She didn't ask why. She just said, "You'll have it by the end of the week." The next part was harder, acting normal. At dinner, I laughed when I was supposed to. I touched his hand. I nodded when he told me about meetings. And I memorized every new lie. By Thursday, Dana sent me everything. Photographs of Marcus with Clara, leaving hotels, entering restaurants, kissing at red lights. Text logs of his messages to her. My husband, who barely remembered our anniversary, was texting this woman poetry. The same poetry he had once written for me. But the worst part wasn't the affair. It was discovering he had been slowly siphoning money from our joint account into a new one, under a fake business name. He was planning to leave me. I wasn't just being cheated on, I was being replaced. Quietly. Legally. Strategically. And that's when I realized, this was no longer about heartbreak. It was about war. So I did what any woman with a broken heart and a sharp mind would do, I started building my own case. I met with a lawyer. I made copies of the bank statements, hotel receipts, and every message Dana had found. I backed them up 3 times, including on a flash drive I kept inside Daniel's old baby sock at the back of my underwear drawer. Then I waited. I knew Marcus was going to leave, but I was going to beat him to it. He came home the following Friday with a look in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Determination. Guilt, maybe. His jaw was tight. He sat across from me after dinner and said, "I think we need to talk." I nodded and said, "Sure. You first." He blinked, surprised by my calm. And then, like a coward, he delivered the line that men like him rehearse in the mirror. "I need space. Time to figure things out." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just nodded and said, "Take all the time you need." He looked surprised, almost relieved. Maybe he thought I was too weak to fight back. Maybe he thought I was just another woman he could leave without consequence. I let him believe that. Because the next phase of my plan had just begun. Marcus moved out the following Monday. He packed a few bags, mostly his gym gear, his MacBook, and some suits, and said he was going to stay with a friend. I knew exactly which friend he meant. Clara. He didn't know I had already changed the passwords on our joint credit cards. Or that I had frozen the automatic transfers to the business account he created. The moment he stepped out of our home, I called the bank and removed him from every shared asset that was legally tied only to me. I wasn't stupid. I had checked the fine print on every contract the week before. I also installed a Ring camera at the front door. Not for protection, but for evidence. He texted me later that evening. "Marcus, I think this will be good for both of us. Maybe in a few months we'll figure things out." Me, of course. "Take all the time you need." I had no intention of waiting. At work, I filed paperwork for a solo LLC. Not for a business, but for something more important, autonomy. I transferred what remained of my freelance editing contracts into the new entity and opened an account under its name. If Marcus ever tried to claim alimony or community assets, I'd have a separate, clean trail. I didn't tell anyone what was going on, not yet. I needed the silence. I needed the illusion that I was weak, waiting, hoping. That's what he would expect. That's what his ego needed. But behind that silence, I was documenting everything. Every late-night call he made to Clara, recorded from Dana's surveillance files. Every ATM withdrawal from our savings account, logged. Every purchase made with the joint card I hadn't yet frozen, screen captured. Then came the legal move. I filed for separation, not divorce. In our state, separation allowed me to request temporary custody, freeze assets, and require that Marcus disclose his financial activity. My lawyer, Ava, was a tactical genius. Calm, composed, and ruthless in court. She'd seen too many women left with nothing. She promised that wouldn't happen to me. Then came the narrative. Marcus had been laying the groundwork to make me look unstable, emotional, reactive, even manipulative. He told Clara I had anger issues and unhealed trauma. That I was difficult to live with. He didn't know I had copies of those texts. And he definitely didn't know Clara was starting to feel guilty. Dana had noticed it. Clara was pulling back, hesitant, unsure. So I helped that seed of guilt grow. I made an anonymous account. I messaged Clara screenshots of the hotel reservations Marcus had booked, with 2 different women over the past year, not including her. I included voice notes he sent another woman that said, "You're the only one who gets me," even while he was still married to me and dating Clara. Clara didn't respond. But I saw the result a few days later when Marcus came to pick up some of his things. He looked furious. His eyes were bloodshot. His phone kept buzzing. He asked me, "Did you send Clara anything?" I smiled gently. "Why would I do that, Marcus? I thought we were taking space." He glared at me as if he knew I was lying. But he had no proof. I kept it clean. That night, Clara dumped him. How do I know? Because Dana filmed it. She slapped him outside his condo, called him a pathological liar, and stormed off. And then, the piece de resistance, she posted a vague but damning caption on her Instagram story. "Imagine destroying a marriage for a man who couldn't even keep your name straight in bed." I didn't laugh. I didn't celebrate. I saved the video. I archived the story. And I wrote down the date. Evidence, after all. The storm wasn't coming. I was the storm. The next morning, my inbox held a court summons. Marcus had filed a petition to amicably resolve the dissolution of marriage, citing irreconcilable differences. Amicably? That word made my skin crawl. What he really meant was, quietly. Without the world knowing what he'd done. He wanted to paint us as two people who simply grew apart, not as a man who cheated on his wife, emotionally abandoned his child, and drained our finances for his selfish escape. But I wasn't going to let him write the ending. Ava, my attorney, immediately filed a countermotion for a contested divorce with grounds of abandonment and financial misconduct. We included the screenshots, the transaction logs, and most damningly, Clara's public story. Clara never mentioned his name, but with the timestamps, Dana's footage, and Marcus's texts, we could connect every dot. That week, I started telling people. My family. My coworkers. A few of our mutual friends. I didn't say it with anger. I said it with calm precision. Marcus left. He moved in with another woman. He drained our savings. I'm filing for full custody of Leo. It's amazing how fast people shift when they hear the truth. How quickly sympathy returns once you show your scars without shame. And how suddenly the golden boy loses his shine. Then something strange happened. Beatrice, Marcus's mother, called me. Jessica, she said, her voice tight, I had no idea he was seeing someone else. He told me you were struggling. That he had to step away for Leo's sake. I almost laughed. I asked her gently, and you believe that? There was silence. And then a slow, embarrassed, yes. I didn't rage. I let her sit in the discomfort. Then I said, I think you should speak to your son. And maybe your lawyer. She didn't call again. But word got around fast. Especially after I forwarded Beatrice a screenshot of her son's offshore account. The one she co-signed 3 years ago for tax reasons. Oops. That was another thing Marcus forgot. I had full access to our shared safe at home. Inside it were all the old documents, passports, birth certificates, financial records, including the one that listed Beatrice as a silent guarantor for an account in Luxembourg. I didn't leak it publicly. I sent it to Ava. With that, we had enough for a full financial forensic audit. The judge approved it within 48 hours. Marcus would now be forced to disclose every account under his name, including the hidden ones. That's when he began to unravel. He showed up at my door. Not pounding, not yelling, just desperate. He stood in his old hoodie, looking thinner, older. A shadow of the man who used to walk into rooms with that arrogant smile. Leo saw him through the peephole and shouted, Daddy? My heart twisted. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. Jessica, please, he said. This doesn't need to get ugly. It already is, I replied. You made it that way. I panicked. I didn't mean to hurt you. Clara, she was a mistake. Clara was just one. There were others. His eyes flickered. I can't lose Leo, he said. Please. You lost him the moment you walked out, I whispered. He reached for my hand. I didn't move. Let me see him. You'll see him, I said. In court. And then I went back inside, leaving him standing there. Leo asked, Is Daddy coming in? I knelt beside him and said, Not today, baby. But Mommy's got you. I tucked him in that night with a story and a promise. We're going to be okay, I said. And this time I wasn't just trying to convince myself. This time it was true. The day after Marcus stood on my doorstep, defeated and trembling, Ava called me with news that made my stomach drop and my fists clench. He just submitted a modified income declaration, she said. He's claiming he has no remaining assets and is requesting to waive child support entirely. I blinked at my phone. What? He's trying to make it look like he's destitute. As if he's a broke man with nothing to give. Jessica, we're about to expose every lie he's told. Ava had filed the financial forensic request 2 days earlier. And with the Luxembourg documents I'd given her, the courts were already pulling records faster than Marcus could spin new stories. By the end of the week, we had a trail of wire transfers, offshore balances, and corporate perks from his company in Barcelona. $87,000 stashed in Luxembourg. Another $26,000 in a Cayman account tied to his LLC. He wasn't broke, he was hiding everything. It was time to stop playing nice. I drafted an email. Then I deleted it. Instead, I called Clara. She answered on the third ring. "Jessica?" "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I'm not even here to shame you. But I think you deserve to know that Marcus has been lying to you too." There was silence. Then a shaky breath. I know. He told me he was separated. I didn't know about Leo. Not until I saw your TikTok. TikTok? That's when it hit me, Dana's video. It had gone viral. One of her followers had clipped the footage, slowed it down, and posted it under a dramatic caption. "Cheater caught on camera, he didn't know his wife was watching." Over 3 million views. Hundreds of comments. Half of them roasting Marcus. The other half supporting me, calling me the quiet storm, the one who walked away with grace. Clara said, "I've already moved out. He's not staying with me anymore." "I appreciate your honesty," I replied. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm not the one who needs to hear that," I said, "but thank you." The next court date was set for 2 weeks later. That gave me time to do what I do best: organize, prepare, build my case like a fortress. Ava and I assembled everything. We had Marcus's wire transfers to secret accounts, a signed email from his accountant showing falsified income declarations, screenshots of his conversations with Beatrice discussing removing Jessica from the picture, a sworn statement from Clara confirming he lied about the state of our marriage, and Leo's birth certificate, which he had tried to remove from the petition, arguing that he wasn't capable of caring for a child while abroad. The day before the hearing, Marcus texted me. "I can't win this. Please don't take Leo away from me. I'll do anything." I stared at the screen and typed, "Start by telling the truth." Court was cold that morning. Not in temperature, but in tension. Marcus sat across from me in a cheap suit, his hair less perfect than usual. Beatrice didn't show up. Clara, surprisingly, did. She sat behind me, silent, face unreadable. Ava presented our case with fire and precision. She wasn't theatrical, she was surgical. Every piece of evidence fit like a puzzle. Every lie Marcus told came undone under oath. When he was asked to explain why $87,000 was funneled to a Luxembourg account 6 days before he served me divorce papers, he stuttered. When asked why he listed no children on his relocation visa application, he looked down. When the judge asked if he had any defense, he shook his head. "No, Your Honor." It was over. The judge ruled. Full custody awarded to me. Supervised visitation granted once per month. Immediate child support of $2,400 per month. Seizure of hidden accounts until assets were equitably divided. Marcus prohibited from leaving the state until payments began. Outside the courtroom, he tried to speak to me. "I'm sorry," he said. I looked at him. Truly looked. This was the man I once thought would be my forever. Now he was just a man who got caught trying to disappear. "I'm not," I said. "Not anymore." And I walked away. Not out of spite, but because I had Leo waiting at home. And I had peace waiting in my future. It took me weeks to fully absorb that it was over. Not just the legal battle, but the emotional war I'd been waging inside my head for months. The silence in the apartment no longer felt like loss, it felt like peace. Leo was thriving. He laughed more. Slept better. His drawings on the fridge no longer showed storm clouds or empty houses, but bright yellow suns and stick figures holding hands. I had my son. I had our home. I had control again. The money recovered from Marcus's offshore accounts allowed me to pay off all outstanding debts and move us into a better part of town. It wasn't extravagant, just safe, warm, and ours. A place that didn't echo with betrayal. I resumed my freelance work full-time, this time with higher rates and a roster of loyal clients who supported me throughout the storm. My editor friends spread the word. New offers came in. I stopped second-guessing myself. I stopped asking for less than I was worth. One evening, as I sat in bed reviewing Leo's preschool forms, a letter arrived in the mail. From Beatrice. I stared at the envelope like it might explode in my hands. My instinct was to shred it, burn it, toss it into oblivion. But I opened it. Inside, a handwritten note. Jessica, you may never forgive me, and I would never ask you to. I was wrong. About you. About everything. David told me what he did. And I defended it for too long. He is my son, but that doesn't excuse what he's done to you or Leo. I hope you raise him better than I raised mine. I am sorry. Beatrice. No return address. No contact information. Just black ink on ivory paper, shaking at the edges. I folded the note and tucked it away in a drawer. Not to revisit. Not to forgive. But because even the worst people sometimes leave behind confessions worth remembering. That week I started writing again. Not freelance work. Not for clients. But for myself. A memoir. It wasn't about David. It wasn't even about the divorce. It was about rebuilding. The quiet rage of a mother betrayed. The small wins that added up. The subtle strength it took to stay calm when everything screamed for vengeance. My title? Thanks for the update. The same words I texted David when he told me he was leaving me and draining our account. It started as journaling. Then friends read it and encouraged me to keep going. Within 3 months, I had a complete draft. By the end of the year, I had a publishing deal. It wasn't a revenge piece. It was a survival story. The first printing sold out in 2 weeks. Women emailed me, strangers from across the country, saying my story helped them walk away. Helped them see what they'd normalized. What they'd accepted for too long. I wasn't famous. But I was free. Then one night, as Leo played with toy dinosaurs and I answered emails, I received a message on LinkedIn. From Marcus. Read your book, he wrote. Didn't know I could feel that many emotions in one sitting. I hope Leo grows up knowing what a badass his mom is. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. But because I had already said everything I needed to. In court. In my book. In my life. Leo walked over with 2 toy dinosaurs and held one out to me. Mommy, let's fight the bad guy. I took the dinosaur from his tiny hand. We already won, baby, I said with a smile. We already won.